Hello and welcome to this session on Katalon Studio beginner tutorials. In this session we are going to go very basic step by step and we will learn how to test APIs or web services with Katalon Studio, and we will see how to set up a API testing project. We will see how to add API request. We will learn how to create API test case and how to add web services keyword, and finally we will run and validate. So let's get started and let me go to my Katalon Studio, and here is my Katalon Studio on a Mac OS system, and in case you are on Windows you can also open your Katalon Studio on Windows, and you can see I am using the latest version as of now, which is 5.4.2 on Windows, as well as on Mac, which is 5.4.2. So this is the latest version as of now. And in case you do not have the latest version, you can go to help section and click on check for updates, and you can get the latest version from here. So let's get started. And if you go to the help screen, you can also get this screen from help and Katalon help menu. If you go here, you have this option for sample web services testing project. So let me click here. You can actually create a new project, but we will use the sample project for demo, and here you can give the name of this project. So you can say this is sample API test project, and you can give the location where you want to save this, and a description is optional, and you can give any description here and say this is a sample project to test API and say OK. So this will create this project here, and you can see here we have this test explorer where we have test cases, object repositories, test suites, data files, checkpoints, keywords, etc. And here if you click on test cases, you can see there are some sample test cases already created. You can go to the object repository and you will find some web services objects already created. So I will just close this Katalon help. So to create a API test case, we have to take some sample API. So I'm going to my browser and I will say sample REST API and click enter. And here you will get some sample APIs. I will get this REQRES. Click here, and this website has some really good sample APIs that you can use for your testing. And here you can see these are the APIs: list users, single user, and all these are get request. You have some post request, put request, and delete request as well. So let me first take a very simple single user get request, and this is the endpoint. So I will take this URL and go to a new tab and paste it, and then I will take this endpoint, copy this, go to a new tab, and then append it here and hit enter, and you can see it is giving me the details of some particular user, which is user 2. Also this is a JSON, but it is not very well formatted. In case you want to look at a formatted JSON response, you can just browse for JSON viewer and you will find many options. So you can go to this JSON viewer here, and here you can give your JSON input and click on beautify, and you are getting this output. So here you can see here in the output we are getting ID, first name, last name, and avatar. So this is the request that we are going to use in our Katalon Studio. So let us go back to our Katalon Studio, and the first step is you will go to this object repository, do a right click, go to new, and here you have to click on web service request. So we have to create a web service request object. However, it is a best practice that you create folders, and inside your folders organize your objects. So first I will create a folder and name it as user and say OK. And inside this user folder now I will create a web service request, and here we have to give the name. So let us give some meaningful name, get user details, is the name, and request type is RESTful. We have SOAP and RESTful, so it is RESTful. The URL, I will copy this that we have taken from our browser. You can give some description which is optional and say OK. And you can see we have got this window, and here now we have a very clean looking UI for APIs and web services in Katalon Studio. In the earlier versions of Katalon Studio, if you go here, this is a earlier version 4.5.0, and here if you look at a sample web service testing project, let me just open a web service testing project in the earlier version. Here if you go to the any API or web service object, you can see the UI was not so clean. The request and response were not separated properly. However, if you see at the latest version, you have a very clean looking UI. Okay, and yes, now we have our API request object, and here you can see this is the URL we have given, and here we have options for the protocol, and here we can have get, post, put, delete, and so on. As of now, this is a get request, and then we have this section for parameters. Now in my request I do not have any parameters. However, in case you have any parameters, you can add it here. Also, in case you have any parameters in the URL itself, for example, if you have parameters like we give question mark name equals Raghav, and you can see it automatically takes it here. So in case you have any parameters in the URL, it will be generated here. Otherwise you can also add manually. So if you go to this section at the bottom, we have authorization, HTTP header, and HTTP body. So in case your request has any authorization, you can give it here, and here in the drop down you have basic and OAuth 1.0. So for example, if you have any basic authorization, you can give the username, password, and as of now I do not have any authorization. Then in case you have any HTTP headers in your request, you can add it here, and in case of post you can get the body here. Okay, and once you have created your request, you just click on this send button or test request button here, and it will ask you to save the changes. I will say OK, and you can see sending request, and here you can see the response. So this window here is for response, and here you can see the status, which is 200 OK. The time taken is 1183 milliseconds, and the size in bytes. And then you have body and header. So these are the response headers, and this is the response body. You also have different formats, so you can see a pretty format, you can see a raw format or a preview, and then you have these different formats or representations at the bottom. You have XML representation, HTML, JavaScript, and JSON. So this is how you can create a request and you can test it. Also, in case you are using any SOAP API, so let me just go and search for a sample SOAP API. I have a country info service WSDL. So in case of SOAP, we have WSDL, which is a web services description language, and you can take any WSDL for any SOAP service which is available online. I'm taking this country info service. So I will just copy this WSDL URL and go to my Katalon Studio, and again in the object repository I will do a right click, and I will first create a new folder, and I will say this is country info service and say OK. And inside the folder now I will create a new web service request, and I will give the name as country info service WSDL, and here I will select this is a SOAP, and here I will just copy and paste the WSDL URL. I can give some description which is optional and say OK, and here you can see this is giving me an option to load from WSDL. So if I click here, it will load all the APIs or all the web services which are available in that document, and here I will get a list of all the APIs. Now you can try selecting any API and run this. However, this will not run properly as of now because we have to give a proper body and everything. So this is something we will learn separately, how to run SOAP requests with Katalon Studio. As of now, let us focus on our get rest request. So this is working fine. And the next step is we have to now create a test case. So until we create a test case and add some verifications, we cannot actually test or validate this API. So I will go to the test cases, do a right click, and I can create a new test case. But as a best practice, I will first create a folder and give some meaningful name to the folder. I am saying this is user test cases. So I can just give the name as user, say OK. And inside the user folder I will create a new test case, and here I will give some name, validate user details, and you can give some description and also you can give some tags. So I will say user details. Now tags are important when you are searching, so if I give some tag and say OK, now this is the test case. And also, as I told you, using tag, it will be very helpful while searching. So if you go here to the search and say user details and click on enter, you can see you will get your particular test case which had that tag. Also it is matching this as well, but definitely you will get the element that has that particular tag. So here now we have our test case. So now here we can start creating our test. So what you have to do is go to this add button and click on web service keyword, and here the very first keyword will be send request. The very first thing we have to do is send the request, and here in the object, if you double click, you will have to select the web service object. So we have to select get user details from here, which was our REST API request, which is this one, and you can click on OK. The other way is you can also drag and drop from the object repository. So I will just drag this and drop this object here, and you can see this has come here. And then in the output, you have to give any variable. So for example, I say this is response. So whatever is the output of this API will be stored in this variable called response. Okay, so this is our first step, which is send request. If you go to the script mode from here bottom, you can see the scripting of this. I will just minimize this import statements, and you can see this is the script ws.sendRequest find test object, and this is the users. Inside users folder we have get user details, and this all is stored inside response. So the response variable will store the output. Okay, so now let me go back to our test case in the manual mode. Now in the first step we have just sent the request and store the output in the response variable. Now we will again add another web service keyword, and that will be verify response status code. So what we are doing is we have to verify that the status code that we are getting back is a valid status code. So we will click on this, and just in case you do not know the keywords that you have to use, you can always go here to the keyword viewer and go to built-in keywords, go to web services keywords, and then here you have all the keywords organized. These are the element keywords, and then these are the request keywords, and so you can find it from here. Also you can go to Katalon Studio documentation on their website, so you can go here. So I'm going to the official website of Katalon Studio. You can go to the resources and click on documentation. Here if you go to the user guides, you have all these guides here, and then there are these built-in keywords. So you can go to the web services and look at all the web services keywords from here. These are the request and these are the response keywords. So you will find all the keywords here as well. So now let me go back, and here we have to verify the status code. So in the input I will have to first give the variable where we stored our response. So this is going to be a variable, and the value of the variable is response, and then the expected status code that we want to find out is, or that we want to validate is 200, and let us say OK. And here it is giving 0, so I can always go to the script mode and I can change this here. So this should be 200, which is a valid status code, and I will go back to manual mode, and yes, this is working fine. So here we are just testing that the status code is 200. Now I will again go to add web services keyword, and I will say verify element property value. So in case you want to validate any particular value inside the response, you will use this keyword, and here in the input you have to give the response object, so which is our variable response that we have stored in our first step, and then we have to give a locator. Okay, so for locator, if you go to your API request, and here for example, if I want to validate first name is Janet, I first have to tell in my test case that what is the locator or what is the position of this particular first name tag. And for that, what you can do is you can go online to your browser and you will find a lot of JSON path finder options. So just go to your Google and say JSON path evaluator or finder. So this one, JSON pathfinder, you can use here. Also there is a Chrome plugin. Let me also take the Chrome plugin and show you. So this is a Chrome plugin, JSON pathfinder. Add it to your Chrome, and once this is added, you can see it here. This is added, and if you click here, it will open a new tab and open this window. Just paste your JSON message here or JSON text here, and then search node. In search node, I want to search first name. Just copy your value or tag here, and then click on submit. Now here you can see it has found first name only at a single location, and which is data dot first item. So this is the JSON path that you can take it from here. Also, if you go to this JSON path finder, here you can do the same thing. You can put your JSON data here, and you click on beautify, and here you will get this formatted data. And now if you click on any element, it will give you the JSON path. So JSON path is data dot first name. You can take it from here or from here, which is the same thing, and go to your Katalon Studio test case, and here you can give the locator here. So this, the locator is data dot first name, and the value that I have to validate is Janet, right? So the value is Janet, which is this one. So I will just say OK, and now I have a test ready. I am sending the request, validating the response code is 200, and then validating the first name is Janet. So now I will just go and hit this run button here, and let us see the log viewer. And yes, this is running our test case, and yes, the test case is passed, and you can see the logs. All the steps have passed. This is passed, second step is passed, and the third step is also passed, which is validating the value in the response. So if in case, let us say I say instead of Janet, I want to test the name is Raghav, of course this should fail now. So if I run it again, let me go to the log viewer, let me run it again now. Yes, this is running now. If I look at the logs, let me check if this fails or not. And yes, you can see this has failed, and this gives a very intuitive message: unable to verify element property value. Expected was Raghav, but actual was Janet, so that's why it failed. Now, of course, if you go to the reports, you will not get any report for test cases. For that, we have to create test suites. So again, go to test suite and do a right click, go to new. You can create a new test suite, but we will create a folder first to organize our test cases. And we will say this is user test suite and say OK. And inside user test suite, you create a test suite. This is for user validation and say OK. And here now you will click add and add the test case. So you can click on this folder and all the test cases inside this folder will be added. As of now we have a single test case. Say OK, and now you can click on this run button. It will run the entire test suite. Let us go to the log viewer, and it is running the test case. And this is executed and you can see the logs here. And of course this is failure because we are still validating Raghav, but the actual value is Janet. And now if you go to the reports, you will see this reports, and again it is inside user test suite folder, user validation, and this is the report. So you can open this report and you can see it shows one test case which has failed. You can look at the summary, which shows you the ID, hostname, the Katalon version, time, pass, fail, etc. You have execution settings here. You have execution environment as well here. So this is how you can test your APIs in Katalon Studio. In the coming sessions, we will learn more about API testing in Katalon Studio. I hope this session was useful for you. Thank you for watching.